Welcome to The Kid is in School, where we talk about whatever we want since our kid is not here to interrupt us. But we don't have a lot of time before the bell rings, so let's get right into it.
Hey, oh man, it's good to be back home after a weekend on the road.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I was in Minnesota, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul performing, and I went to the Mall of America for the first time.
Is that the mall with a roller coaster inside?
It does. It has a roller coaster. It has like a whole little Nickelodeon land, and
cute.
SpongeBob was walking around. Although it's not nearly as big as I thought it would be. It's not like Universal Studios Florida when we were kids. The way they were talking. But it really ended up just being a mall. Like
wow, classic mall.
Basically, I think I had it. I think I had in my head that it was going to be this amazing mall like I've never seen, maybe 12 stories tall and 3 miles wide, some sort of Paul Bunyan type of mall.
When you describe a mall like that, that is the mall in the movie Mannequin. Did you ever see that?
I think I remember vaguely Mannequin.
It was high enough for them to hang glide from the top floor down to the bottom.
Mannequin, another Abbi movie that there's no way I would have ever seen as a child.
If it was made in the 80s, if it aired on Cinemax and Luke wasn't allowed to watch it, I've seen it.
It's got to be one of those romantic comedies that were definitely for adults, and you were for some reason you were watching when you were 8.
I know the reason. I would sneak a peek at the max. Sneak a peek at the max. I meant sneak a peek at the max.
You're taking screenshots.
Oh, wait, I forgot to call it by its nickname. Skinamax.
Skinamax.
Do you remember that? Did the kids call it that on the playground?
They did. They absolutely did call that, which we didn't have Cinemax, HBO, or any of those type of things. We didn't even have cable for a long time.
Wow. So, back to the Mall of America. Mm-hmm. When you sent me videos of it, it looked like I thought. It is very open air. There's a lot of bright light coming from the ceiling, right? Does it have like a window at the ceiling?
It might have. I didn't really pay attention. I mean, all malls are pretty bright.
You're right. They're not just bright because they've got a giant sunroof. They're bright because they have an enormous amount of lights in them.
Yes.
But yeah, it looked cool. It looked fun.
It was fun, but it really wasn't any different than the malls that I go to.
So it had a lot of stores.
Yes, but all the stores are the same at all of these malls. Mm-hmm. It's Macy's, it's Nordstrom. If you want to see a video game store, it's GameStop. Mm-hmm. It's those type of stores.
Yeah, it's nothing cutesy or boutique-y.
No, and if there is, I didn't see it. They did have one whole level that was food.
Yeah,
basically. So like
I want
level
that
3.
Orange chicken samples on a toothpick. That's what I think about when malls. I think about food courts and I think about freebies.
Oh yeah, I remember the samples. They didn't do any samples. Like you had
I think
to pay
post-COVID, you probably shouldn't do samples.
No, that's how several different diseases were spread throughout the 90s. So yeah, it's something where, boy, I enjoy going to a mall, but it really is kind of a bland experience in some ways too.
It's, I haven't seen, all the malls that I grew up with don't exist anymore. So when I picture a mall, I just picture people in tracksuits and wearing scrunchies. Is that who was there?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's modern day people.
They weren't stuck in time.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not some sort of a weird convention that people are going to. The mall conventions where you have to look like it's 1991.
Oh, that sounds so fun. You're making me think of two things. Mall Madness, a board game that was designed to look like a mall. You build your own mall, and it had cute little store names. And then Orange Julius, which I never tried, but I always walked by on my way to Mrs. Fields. Like, I would always get a cookie and pass on orange juice mixed with ice cream. I thought, that sounds really weird.
They did seem to have a good cookie store. I don't remember what it was called, but it probably is a chain that I'm just not aware of. So they didn't have Mrs. Fields, but they had something else. And they have Auntie Anne's, so when you come in from the parking lot, you immediately smell the pretzels.
How do you feel about it being chains instead of mom and pop shops?
I don't know that it matters. The thing about chains is they're fun for the people that go to them.
Yeah.
Like, even when I said
devotees.
Like, going to a mall is bland. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like going to Red Lobster. Mm-hmm. You kind of know what you're going to get. There's no real surprises, so you can get the coconut shrimp every time, anywhere in the country. But if you travel the way that we do as comedians, and you go to different places, you want to see different things. And you don't get that when it's a chain. You get the exact same experience no matter where you are.
Right.
So that's what's kind of a bummer about a chain. Now, it's also a department store like Macy's, you might be looking for something specific. You might want a pair of Levi's jeans. And so wherever you are, it's good to know, hey, I can get that here.
Right.
I don't need it to have been stitched together by some mom and pop shop and like, these are our own specific jean line. I don't need that. I don't need boutique on certain things like that. But you definitely do not get unique experiences. Now, one thing that is kind of, they did have a couple unique things. Now that I think about it, was there was like a puppet shop.
Oh,
Just a
wow.
Yeah, like-
oh, I wish I knew about that. We have a friend that's obsessed with puppets, and I always want to get him a puppet of himself. I will one day.
Really? I don't even know which friend that is, but don't tell me. I don't
I
want to know. I don't want to know somebody is obsessed with puppets. That's kind of creeps me out.
He just loves puppets. They make him laugh. Okay, so that's a store for people who want to like buy them for their kids, or is it for enthusiasts like crafters that want to make one?
Didn't go in. I couldn't tell you.
I'll tell you what it was. It was a store for you to go in and then be a part of some televised scary story, like Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like puppet stores only exist in R.L. Stein's Goosebumps books.
They're definitely interesting to see some of those type of stores. So, and there was a magic museum, like Museum of Illusion there.
I love that.
Which didn't even look like it was open, but you have to buy tickets to go see it. And I'm like, I don't really care about illusions like that. Now, the surprising thing, I think the weekend before, I was in this, they call it Peddler's Village, was where I was performing. And so it's all unique boutique shops. Now, the thing about that is I don't want to buy any of it.
Why?
It's because it's nothing I couldn't possibly be interested in.
Yeah.
Like we went into one that's just a game store. And when I say games, I mean board games,
I love
card
game stores.
games.
Yeah, those are great.
And I'm not.
Yeah, you can't pack that in a suitcase.
I can't. I'm also not a board game person, really. If somebody has one, I'll play occasionally, but that's not my thing. So I go in and look at it and go, oh, cool. Or we saw a model shop, so that where you build models and they had puzzles. It's all puzzles and models.
Nice.
And so you could build the Eiffel Tower, or have a puzzle of a 3-dimensional puzzle. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting to look at. I don't want it.
I remember when 3D puzzles came onto the scene, and I thought I could never figure that out. I just didn't. I didn't want anything to do with it. I thought that's too hard for me. It's like trying.
It's witchcraft.
It was like trying to name pi beyond 50 numbers or something. I was like, that looks too heady.
Yeah.
But I guess it was for somebody. Somebody got into it.
I want nothing to do with it. The way you phrase that is, you sound like some old church lady that's like, that's demons. I want nothing to do with that.
That's spooky stuff right there. Well, this is a memory, but when you said illusion store, I thought you were going to say a magic trick shop. Do you remember when we went on vacation with your family in Florida, we were walking through a little village and there was a magic store, and they said, come by in 20 minutes, there's going to be a magic show. Did we watch the magic show, or did we just not hang around that long?
I don't think we watched the magic show.
Yeah, I don't think we did either, but I wanted to.
Yeah, well, that's when you're traveling with older people. They need to set every 5 or 10 minutes. So
yeah, I'm not waiting 20 minutes.
I can't wait. I can't stand on my feet for 20 minutes waiting for this thing. And it was such a small store too. It's uncomfortable to wait that long because you're just there with the person at the front desk.
Right.
That is
it was
selling
it was
the
very
illusion.
quiet in there. Yeah, and you're just like pretending to look at things. Oh, that looks nice. Rings, rings that come apart and go
so you
back
have
together.
to give that fake excuse. Oh, well, we'll come back later.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just got to get out of here.
I don't want any of this. There was a magician at my friend's wedding. I thought that was so cool. I love magicians.
That is good for a wedding. Occasionally I'll get hired to do comedy at a wedding, but that's something that is really at an actual wedding or wedding reception. You might want a comedian for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at most. You don't. I mean, sometimes they ask, "Let's have you for an hour," and I'm like, "That's not a good idea at a wedding."
Right. People really want to connect
Right.
with each other and not listen to somebody else.
But magic, especially if it's the walk around magic, that is something fun for a reception that you can have where people can sit, and while they're waiting for the bride and groom, because we all have that moment where we're all waiting for the bride and groom, so we're just kind of sit here. Maybe they have a few hors d'oeuvres or cocktails coming around or something like that. But there's nothing else to do. You're just kind of waiting, and you're waiting and waiting.
Yeah, it fills the silence a bit.
And it gives you something to do. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Walk around comedy doesn't really work.
My cousin wanted me to do stand up at her wedding, and I said, give me 10 minutes to think about it. And I thought about it, and I thought about a set list, and then I thought, nah, it just doesn't feel like the right environment. It was broad daylight and people were already having a good time. So to call their attention to my life seemed really silly. And I wasn't primed to roast her at her own wedding, in a gentle, loving way. So I just thought, nah.
Yeah, it really depends on them. I have done weddings where I did one where it was outdoors. Mm-hmm. The wedding reception was outdoors, but I think even the ceremony was outdoors. But they had everything set up in a different area for the show. Mm-hmm. So all of the chairs facing forward, and they had a central location. And if you wanted to see the comedy, you needed to come over to that space.
That's good.
And that was better than everybody in the room, like a banquet hall. Now I've got the mic and I'm just doing it for you guys.
Right.
It's a little weird.
Attention, please.
Yes.
Well, you told me there was a Lego store at the Mall of America.
There was. In fact, that was one of the things that my friends that were taking me around to see this, that I have some friends there, and they like, we got to go to the Lego store. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go to the Lego store. And you
got to see this.
You got to see the Lego store.
Legos. Have you heard of them?
Yes. And and there's part of me that kind of will go along with anything like that. Like, I don't, unless I have a specific thing I want to do, it's like, sure, I'll go look at the Legos. But, and part of it, I'm looking at the Legos for you guys, not for me.
Well, it would be weird if you refused.
Right. Like, I'm not looking at Legos. Do not take me to Legos.
Don't make me do it.
Yes. There's one thing in life I will not look at is Legos. Me and Legos have a big problem. But, they had these giant Lego sculptures outside of the store and hanging above them, and those are somewhat interesting to see. Like, there was a transformer, there was a life-size helicopter.
Oh, wow.
Made out of Legos. And I thought, do they glue those together? How strong is that?
Really.
Like, is this thing going to fall apart on my head? But I couldn't even go in the Lego store because there was a line out the door waiting to get in.
Wow.
And it kind of was a little blessing in disguise. That way I didn't have to go into the Lego store.
Could you imagine waiting in that line just to get inside and look at, yep, they're Lego bricks. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, like, okay, there's Lego. And it's all about Lego sets now.
Right. Which are branded, right?
Branded,
They've
yes.
got, different movies.
Star Wars. They have Nintendo and Atari little consoles that are, Mario stuff.
It's kind of cute, but you can't play with it.
No.
You just build it and look at it.
Yeah, well, Lego enthusiasts would say, that's all you're doing is playing with it. And so, and my friend likes Legos and, he has some Lego sculptures. I never was a big Lego kid anyway.
No one ever gave them to you as a kid?
I did have some, and I had a big, case of Legos.
Oh.
But it was something I break out occasionally. I built a cargo ship once, and it was like, oh, that's kind of fun.
Did you build it based on the instructions, or did you freestyle?
The cargo ship I built based on instructions.
Nice.
But the bucket of Legos was just build whatever you want. And that's what Legos more or less were when I was a kid. They had a few non-branded things, like here's a cargo ship or here's an airplane. Mm-hmm. So now they're, not only are they gigantic sets, they have, my friend has a Home Alone house with Marv and Harry. Like, they have their van on the side and all of this.
That's
and
cute.
it's cute to look at. And then as we were going around the outside of the Lego store, they had displays, and there was one that's just not towns, but like New Orleans Jazz Club, and you can add sets to them and make
almost like a dollhouse, I guess.
Yes, and there was one that my friend was really excited about, and I want to say it was Lord of the Rings, and I didn't know any. I've never seen. I've only seen one Lord of the Rings ever.
The movie, and you've never read the books.
Never read the books, never watched it. And even technically, I didn't even see that one movie because it was the second one, and I fell asleep in it. Like, literally within the first 5 minutes, I was like, this is boring, and I fell asleep.
Wow. I fell asleep in it, too, the very first Lord of the Rings. But then I went back and watched it and finished it.
Yes, well...
That's crazy. We both fell asleep in one.
Not only did I fall asleep to that one, my brother-in-law, who really loves Lord of the Rings, he's like, no, you got to watch it. And so he showed me on DVD, and I fell asleep a second time in it.
There's something in the script that is like it's hypnotic for you.
Yes.
You just fall asleep.
I know. I should, instead of ASMR videos, I should just play clips of Lord of the Rings, and I'll be out.
That's so funny. I know the reason I fell asleep was because it was late at night. It was a late showing, and it's a long film, so I just couldn't. It was past my bedtime, and I fell asleep.
I think part of it is the runtime.
Yeah.
Is, I don't know, 2.5, 3.5, something crazy amount of hours. So even going into it, knowing, man, this is really long.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to see it. And so 10 minutes in, I'm like, I'm kind of tired. I'll just sleep the rest of the time.
Your body rejected it.
Yes.
Well, I want to back up a little bit because I was going to ask you about Legos. See, I had neighbors that had Duplos. Are they called Diplo or Duplo?
I think Duplo.
That's a fatter, larger version of Lego. And we Lego blocks. I keep wanting to call them Lego instead of Legos because I read somewhere that you're not supposed to pluralize it. But let me just...
No, you go
I'll be colloquial.
Yeah, go with the common terms.
Legos. So we would always call them Legos for shorthand. We didn't call them Duplo box. And there was, my imagination was very limited as to what I could make out of those with my little neighbors. It was like towers and squares. I mean, I made cubes. So, and we used her Fisher-Price little people to be the people inside the Lego houses. So even though we played with them, I never got into building anything extravagant. One time I built a Jeep with our daughter that you got her, I think, and following instructions, and I even found that to be not interesting. I love puzzles, but I don't like Lego. I don't know why.
Puzzles are okay. I'm kind of okay with puzzles, and I'm okay with Legos. In the Duplo box, I probably played with those more when I was a kid than I ever did with Legos. There's just something that's just not that interesting to me about Legos.
They don't spark my imagination, and I am not an engineer, so they don't help me to build anything unless it's Play-Doh. I can make food, realistic looking food out of Play-Doh, but I can't do that.
Well, I think those are two different things because Play-Doh is literally just a lump of clay, and you get to model it and mold it into whatever you want. Legos, there's a goal with it. It's to turn this pile of blocks into this Transformer or this Mario set or whatever it is. And I think that even just back when we were kids, when it was just a pile of Legos, was more creative than just follow the instructions. Yeah,
that's what I would usually do. And in grade school, I remember I went to a Montessori school, so we were given materials, which is essentially just toys, and that spark our imagination. But they were a means to an end to learn math or to learn something. And so they had a robotic Lego set where you could add, or I don't know if robotic's the word, but you could add an engine or battery powered thing and build a car that would actually move. And it was like too hard for me to comprehend, so I would just watch kids put it together. I wouldn't know like where to begin. So for me, I never really got into building that way, and it didn't, I don't know why, but some people love it. Adults, you said, are now making these sets, not just people with kids.
Yeah, in fact, I only saw adults in line. I didn't see any kids in line.
Yeah.
They had a little play area out in front that had the loose Legos that kids were playing in, but everyone in line and everybody in the store was an adult. And so I have a feeling that it is one of those nerdy things.
Yeah.
Nerd out types of have fun with.
Nerd out with your turd out.
I don't even know what that means, but it's funny.
It's an old phrase.
Yeah.
It's an old expression. The thing I like about our kid who's into Legos is that I like organizing them. I like putting them in a box where they're neat and tucked out of the way.
Color coded and
I haven't color coded them yet, but if I found the right box to do that, I would. But they're just, the pieces are so tiny, so I like a little container.
You're like the Goodwill of Lego blocks. Like everything's based on color and depending on which tag.
I do love that.
Off.
You know, Home Edit stole from Goodwill. Nobody ever talks about that. The Home Edit is the organizing team that puts everything in organization of rainbows, like colored pencils and everything. And Goodwill did it first. Goodwill did it first.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what other people nerd out over.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely not what I nerd out over. Like, and I would call myself part of nerd culture, especially growing up. You know, I was playing with Ninja Turtles. I was playing with pro wrestling figures and watching the shows. I love Star Trek. I watched that Next Generation and
Me
Deep Space
too, but
Nine.
I don't identify as a nerd. Is it because I didn't wear glasses?
Oh, you were a nerd.
No. You wore glasses.
I did, but that's part of nerd culture. But there are things that it's almost like politics, where if you're a Democrat, you have to identify with all the things we believe in, or Republican, you have to identify with everything on our list. It seems like if you're part of nerd culture, you're supposed to love everything in the entire pantheon of nerdom.
Right, including fantasy.
Fantasy.
Which that's where they lose you.
Yeah, well, even I think like Legos are part of that, and it's like I'm not really into that. Going through some of the Lego sets here, I can even go into other areas like the Lord of the Rings. I don't like Lord of the Rings. I don't love fantasy like you were
We've
saying.
established that.
I don't enjoy.
You like it as a sedative. You don't like it as a form of entertainment.
Yes. It's my version of melatonin. What's another one? The Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, I tried reading that first book and I couldn't get through it. What's wrong with me?
No.
Everybody loves that franchise.
And our daughter is, being only 5, has not shown an interest in that stuff yet.
And I'm so thankful.
She likes a little bit of I'm about to call it Pikachu, but it's
Pokemon. You're right. She is starting to get into Pokemon
she gets
a little bit.
She likes that a little bit. She's playing, but I don't really enjoy it. Even though I like video games, it's not really my thing. But I'm letting her play the Pokemon Smile when she brushes her teeth, or she's playing someone.
That's a little interactive app that reminds you to brush your teeth.
Yes. And you collect Pokemon with it. And so she also is playing the video games on her Nintendo DS.
Yes.
But it's not really my thing. But we've been watching Star Trek shows. We're watching all of the new ones. We watching some of the old ones.
Some of the new ones are a slog for me, and it's not the reasons they are for you, because I know you've got actual genuine critiques of like, this is not canon.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, if it's not drama based, it has to be drama and excitement. So that's why I like the one with Captain Pike. But if it's all, I don't know, if it's too technical and too outer space based, then then it loses
if
me.
it's too outer space based in space in Star Trek.
No, truly, like I was trying to tell you this before we began, that my favorite scenes in Star Trek Next Generation were when Deanna Troi, she's the chillest of them all, would meet somebody in the canteen, which you said is not the canteen, it's called
10 Forward.
10 Forward, thank you. And I just want to see what they're eating and what weird chess they're playing. I don't want to hear about the magma data magnetization of the isotopes.
None of that's real. You've just made that up.
It's never real.
Yeah. No, it's real in their world. So, yeah, first of all, I don't think anything's called a canteen, is it? Like, isn't it like a
I
cantina?
might be confusing that with Star Wars
Yeah.
Cantina. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
but canteen is just what you hold your water in, right?
No, I think a canteen is also a place where you
Okay.
eat. It's like a cafeteria.
Well, maybe. We don't have to argue over the particulars.
Oh
of that.
my gosh! Just agree with me.
All I picture is when you say they're hanging out in a canteen, is I picture one of those water bottles you see in the
desert.
Everybody has in the desert. It's round. It's got the screw top.
Khaki colored.
It's got a little strap around it. So I picture them all being shrunk down and inside of that.
Oh my goodness! Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sitting on the lid of a canteen.
So yes, all of that there's a lot of technical stuff in that, and so, but I like science fiction. That's a form of fantasy, and I like that. But usually, fantasy is referring to dragons and orcs and.
Well, space terrifies me. So when I hear science fiction, I just think scary. I think monsters. I think we're all going to die here if one of us doesn't come up with a single solution. So I guess I don't like sci-fi. But I watch a lot of it because I like you. And it's interesting to you. And then I learn a little bit more.
I hate to break this news to you, but you are actually in space right now.
No!
Earth is part of space. It's part of the universe. And so...
Don't give me an existential crisis.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter whether you're on a spaceship or you're on Earth. You're in outer space.
Oh.
So
wow.
It's all perspective of which way you're looking at it from. Whether you're here on Earth or you're living on Vulcan.
So what is it about fantasy that you don't like?
I don't know. Maybe it's all the way back to childhood. I didn't really like Willow, or what were some of the other ones as a kid? There was these Lord of the Rings films and The Hobbit that I watched that were, as an adult, like, they're very creatively done, but I only sort of liked them because...
You're giving them some credit.
Well, because I don't know how they animated it, but it was almost like they animated over real people.
Oh.
But I'm not sure if that's exactly how they did it, but it was a weird animation style, so it always caught my eye a little bit. Now, it was The Hobbit. I remember The Hobbit, but them fighting over the ring there, I didn't realize The Hobbit was part of a larger Lord of the Rings universe.
I would like to watch Willow just for Val Kilmer. I want to see him.
Yeah, I
Young Val.
forgot that he was in that. And there's other stuff that Tom Cruise was in one.
Oh, really?
That I don't remember the name of, but I think he was like an elf or something.
And you know who else? Henry Cavill's in one now where he has white hair.
Oh,
And I
yes.
know that because the thing I nerd out about is nail polish. And a lot of people who are into painting their nails and showing it on Instagram are also into fantasy
Yeah.
shows.
You know what it is? It's medieval fantasy. It's always like
Right.
so what was the other one that was on HBO that everyone loved?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. I'm like,
Which didn't take place in a real time, but
Yeah.
it had a lot of the elements of like medieval
anything
times.
that's like medieval looking, I'm always like, it's so filthy
Castles,
and
they're
disgusting. There's
There's
there-
no Wi-Fi.
the only medieval thing I liked was there was a Martin Lawrence movie called Black Knight, and
It was good.
he got sent back into medieval times.
Yeah.
And so I guess the whole premise is there's a black man in medieval times Europe, and so. But it kind of highlighted how gross it was. So at one point he had to use the bathroom.
Yes.
And he goes in, and you just
Like an outhouse of sorts.
Yes, and you just see flies buzzing, and he gets sick, and like, whoa, duty, I gotta get out of here, and he can't go in there. That's the way I picture all of medieval
Yeah,
stuff.
no
It's like
indoor plumbing.
disease and rats.
Nobody's
and-
brushing their teeth.
No, the plague, like all of that. It's called the Dark Ages. So
Right.
like, why would you want to be in that time zone? But people just they romanticize it, and I'm like, oh, it was.
They really
gross.
do. Yeah, I don't like movies that show people waking up with makeup on. It's like, they didn't look that good.
Nobody looked good. Everyone looked gross.
This actor
and
had
smelled
braces,
awful.
and now their teeth are straight. Nobody had that back then.
Not a single person.
Well, yeah, I wonder if that's what I don't like about it. I don't like when knights' suits are so heavy.
You don't like when the metal suits, the entire armor suit.
Yeah,
is
I'm like, I can't
heavy.
get into that. Who would want to wear that? That was so uncomfortable. Wasn't Heath Ledger in a Knight movie where he had to joust and just the poking of the sticks on the horses?
Yes.
What was that sport all about? This is awful.
I guess the only other medieval type thing I liked was Robin Hood, the Disney movie.
The
Where-
cartoon.
The cartoon.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
I like
but
that.
I don't want to see a real Robin Hood. I want to see the Robin Hood that it's a fox and a bear and all of that.
Did you like Robin Hood Men in Tights with Carrie Elwes?
I never saw it.
Ah, it's a good comedy.
I did
It's
start to
Mel
see.
Brooks.
I know it is. Well, when I was a kid, everybody was talking about Robin Hood Men in Tights, and they were quoting it. Dave Chappelle's in it,
Right.
and I wasn't allowed to watch it. And
It
so
was, yeah,
I was too
it's
young.
a little, I don't know. I watched it again as an adult, and the comedy's still there. I still liked it, but yeah, some of the things we can laugh at today, or we can't laugh at today, were in that movie. But I liked First Night with, oh no, I'm going to call him Robert De Niro. Hang on, let me think. Richard Gere.
Richard Gere, two different, very
Completely
very
different
actors.
people. Richard Gere's in First Night with Sean Connery. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so, but it's
it's
again,
good.
it falls under the category. I don't want to see that.
You
I don't want to
would
see the
love
nights.
it.
I wouldn't though. It
It's
sounds
a love
like
story.
yes, it sounds like you've taken Mannequin and put him in a suit of armor. And I'm like, I don't want to see this.
That's what Robin Hood Men in Tights is. It's a mannequin in a suit of armor.
You know?
So anyway, camp. It's like campy comedy.
Yeah, but I don't want to like poop on anybody else's parade with what they like. If you have fun with it and you want to dress up, go ahead.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
I asked you, would you go to a convention, or I'm thinking like a medieval festival, even though it's fantasy based? Like, what if you were an actor in a fantasy movie? So now you have to show up at this convention. Couldn't you get something out of it, or would you just be dreading the whole
I
event?
definitely could get something out of it. It's called a paycheck. I don't know if you know this, that everyone gets paid to be on those panels. I show up to every single one. It's interesting, with Picard season 3 kind of being the final time possibly that we see the Next Generation cast all together. There's some interviews I saw with them, and William Riker, the character played by Jonathan Frakes, said that before he got in Star Trek, he didn't really know much about that world, and so he started going to the conventions, and he would see everybody's action figures. Oh, he's like, oh, they got action figures of us, and so Geordie's $45, or Captain Picard $75, and then Riker was like, free with the purchase of any other figure. They're just giving them away.
No.
And he's like, oh, and people kind of hated the show at first, like the original Star Trek fans.
Funny.
Hated it at first. So he's like, oh, that's kind of an entry into that world. And so I imagine doing conventions and being in whatever type of movie would be at a convention, whether it's, Comic-Con kind of encompasses everything in nerdom. So it could be video game characters or sci-fi, Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, fantasy type of stuff. So they're all there, and people are cosplaying, dressing up as the characters.
Right. They're going all out.
I only cosplay on Halloween.
Well, I'm saying it's like Halloween.
Yes.
It's like getting to celebrate Halloween twice.
So I can imagine it being fun to do, but there's also the chance that if you're on or part of a comic book show or a movie or any of these things that people don't like, you are going to receive a lot of hate from very passionate people.
Oh, dear. I wonder what that's like. I wonder if it's like being a scab. Is that the word? No, when you're a heel, in wrestling, and the audience loves to boo you.
You're at danger of people being very upset with you on that.
I just wonder if it's fun for you, or you think it hurts your feelings.
I can't imagine it's being. Just think about it as comics, and people get very passionate about comedy.
That's true.
People that find something funny, they love it. If people don't think it's funny, it's the worst thing. It's garbage. Why did you ever exist? Type of thing.
You're right. It is very similar because they're taking it way too seriously, and you're like, this is just a joke.
I know this is all supposed to be fun.
And if you're an actor on a show they don't like, you're like, or a character that they are mad at, you're like, I'm just playing a character. That's not really who I am. Please.
Yeah. Especially if you're just an actor that's passionate about acting, you got into it to just do characters, and you probably want to do a lot of things. And so I can understand why some actors are a little cautious about taking on certain characters, whether it's Batman or whether it's something in Lord of the Rings. You go, I don't know, because once you do that, you are either branded as that and we love you, or you didn't live up to what we wanted it to be.
We have someone close to our circle who is living one of my dreams. We have a friend. I'm not going to name names right now because I would get the show wrong, but the guy that we both know has a girlfriend who's been an actress for a while, but she's now on a hit show, and they made a figurine out of her character.
Oh, that's
so it's
cool.
It's in this I think it's in this genre of sci-fi.
It's not even free with a purchase of any other character.
I have no idea on the value of the doll, but she posted on Instagram, and I was like, that is really cool. I would love to see a little version of myself, even if it didn't look a thing like me, or if I'm just in head to toe purple makeup. I would still like to know that I became like a figurine that you could play with. I think that's so cute.
Yeah, that is really good fun, and there's not a lot of comics that have ever had a figure of them.
No,
I know. There was for a little bit, I don't know if they're still doing this, there was like this extra layer of nerd figurines, which was like Sigmund Freud and Albert Einstein. They just made historical figure toys.
That's funny.
And I was like, man, the market for this has to be tiny.
You just buy them for your psychiatrist friends.
Yes.
And they can put them in their office.
It feels like something that would be at a Spencer's Gifts where like,
yes.
This is all novelty. Nobody actually wants this. It's going to be on clearance in 6 months.
Speaking of novelties or nerddom that I don't get, Funko Pop dolls.
Yeah.
I know you've seen them because I have one. My friend gave me one because she collects them. She gave me one of Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher on Murder, She Wrote, which I think is so fun, but I can't take it out of the box. So you really have to commit to providing the space for the box, the plastic, and occasionally looking inside the box and saying, oh, there's that thing I like.
Yeah, it is. I don't get the Funko Pop because it's like the same character dressed up as all of these other characters. So the same whatever big head doll. I don't know if that thing has a name or not.
I don't know either.
And so
Funko Pop is his name.
Yeah, it's one of those where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That one looks like Wolverine or whatever, but I don't want it. I don't want to collect it.
I know, and I just love the novelty of it, but I can't think of wanting any more that have to do with my interests. Like I just can't commit to that aesthetic. Let's put it that way.
And I think that's the thing about being in some sort of nerd culture is that it really sometimes is a Venn diagram about what your interest might be. There might be somebody who over here loves Lord of the Rings and I'm over here loving Star Trek, and sometimes there's a little space in between where we both like pro wrestling that lines up in that Venn diagram. But that doesn't mean that that I like Lord of the Rings or they like Star Trek or that somebody else even likes any of it. And so it can happen that people think that you are a fan of everything that is nerdy just because you like a couple of the things.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still struggling with the idea that you think of yourself as a nerd because even when I met you, we were in our 20s and you had very long hair. You were wearing a baseball tee as you are right now today. So your style hasn't changed much. But your hair, you just looked more like a guy who owned a van. And at the time, I believe you had a Jeep Wrangler, so
Yes.
I couldn't figure you out. I was just like, and did you also have a mustache when I met you?
Very possibly.
With very long mutton chops, or not
well,
mutton chops?
I changed up my facial hairstyle all the time. So I at one point I did have a mustache. One point I did have mutton chops. At one point I had full beard at different points. So I don't know what it
Right.
was
When you meet a person with long hair and a mustache, or long hair and a beard and a mustache, you think something about them. I can't think of a character right now. Did Riker have a beard the first time you met him? No, he was clean shaven.
He was clean shaven.
Oh, I forget that. Bob Vila. If you met Bob Vila and he's got a plaid shirt and a beard, and then the next time you saw him, he had blonde hair and it was like in 2 long braids, you wouldn't see the same person.
He looks like Willie Nelson now.
Yeah, if he looked like Willie Nelson the next week, you'd be like, who the heck is this guy? So that was how I was with you, and I wasn't like, this man's a total nerd. I think I was just like, I wonder what this guy's got going on here. He does drugs.
Yeah, he looks,
I definitely
like
knew that.
Like, hey, man.
Didn't you get teased about that a lot? People always thought they could score from you, and you were like, I don't do drugs.
There was like, oh, man, you get it. Yeah. You're cool, right? You're down. I'm like, I'm more of an undercover cop here. I don't know.
You're like, I could get in on a bowl of Oreo O's.
Yes.
I know you loved that cereal.
Yeah, I maybe that's the thing. I think I've never been to a convention, but I think if we went, we would see a cross section of all types of people, races, genders, everything that you'd be surprised. Oh, you like this stuff? Same way that happens with video games. Like, I like video games and I collect those, and that's part of the nerd culture I'm in. Mm-hmm. And who ends up liking them? You can't just base by appearance. It isn't just
True.
like the comic book store owner in The Simpsons. Like, they don't all look like that.
It's very true. Me, for example, I look like Halle Berry.
Yes.
Do you think of Halle Berry as somebody who likes nerdy things? Well, I, for one, do not.
Yes.
Although she would be at a convention if she had to, be Storm or something.
Yes.
I'm sure she's done that. And the reason I say Halle Berry, by the way, is because a man said I looked like Halle Berry just this week in the Dollar Tree. Okay.
Yeah.
I was at the freezer section. And he stopped in his tracks and he said, Halle Berry. And then he walked away.
I think he's just asking if you knew her.
Yeah, I think he was having a hallucination.
He didn't even know you were there.
Yeah.
Halle Berry. That's who I like.
Halle Berry. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe he was pointing to a berry popsicle in the freezer. Who knows?
Holly Berry.
But I take it. I get what is that? I take what I can. You used to have this expression.
I'll take what I can get.
I take what I can get.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a compliment, whatever. I'll take it.
Thank you.
I'll leave it up on the YouTube comments.
I took someone else's compliment the other day. This on the way into a store, a woman said, I love your hair. And I said, thank you, at the same time as a young man behind me said, thank you. And he also had beautiful curls, and mine was like up in a bun. I thought, oh, it's probably for him.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that on everybody's compliment.
But it's so funny to do that.
I love your curls. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm like, you don't have curls. Thank you.
Yeah.
I said, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you had a great time, let us know on social. Follow Kid is in School on Twitter and The Kid is in School on Instagram. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. Be sure to throw us one of those 5-star ratings and share with your friends. Oh, and do it quickly before the kid gets home.